welcome each and every one of you to the month of June's edition of the Premier's Monthly Press Conference. These press conferences, as you are aware, are designed to bring a new level of openness and accountability within the Nevis Island administration. The format for this morning press conference is as follows. The Premier will make his statement, and the members of the press corps will be given the opportunity to ask their questions. In so doing, you're kindly asked to give your name and the organization/media house that you represent, just in case we have to give follow-up information subsequent to the press conference. In asking your questions, you're kindly, once again, as per usual, asked to ask questions, no editorials. Ladies and gentlemen, without further gilding the lily, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to the members of the press that are here, to those who are watching via the various platforms, and certainly those who are listening. I have quite a bit of information to get through, so let me get to it. But I say welcome to all of you to another edition of our monthly press conference. Let me start by congratulating 4 Division women who were selected to play for the women's T20 series, selected to play for the cricket team. They are Sanelda Willett, Vice Captain, Milicia Clark, Rosa Liebert, and Arshina Freeman. Let me also congratulate Shakir Stapleton, who, as we all would have heard, won gold medals in tennis for the St. Kitts Nevis team at the recently held Special Olympian event in Orlando, Florida. Mr. Colin Kesey Archibald, he's been drafted, I'm told, by the Morrisville Raptors to play minor league cricket in the United States, and we congratulate Kesey and continue to wish him well. We also, of course, congratulate 4 youngsters who were selected for the under-20 football team that played recently in Honduras. They're Vibert Stephen, Rocco Brown, Jalden Myers, and Kinesia Dorset. I know Rocco particularly well. He's an excellent masquerade dancer, and I did not know until then that he was also an excellent footballer. So congratulations certainly to them. Let me also, while I'm congratulating, move over to the Four Seasons Resort. And we're very pleased to hear there that we've had some local appointments. Donna Eloy is now the security manager. Rohanda Devant Thompson is the conference services manager. Sanura Daniel Bramble, she has been promoted to administrative assistant. And Desiree Otley Tyson has now taken the post of assistant director of people and culture at the Four Seasons Resort. There have also been some other local promotions. Nicole Liebert, my good friend, she has moved from server to food and beverage supervisor. Kareem Walters, from mechanic to fleet mechanic supervisor. Andy Jones, from irrigation specialist to landscaping supervisor. Alicia Pemberton, from housekeeping room attendant to housekeeping supervisor. Pamela Small, from housekeeping room attendant to housekeeping supervisor. And Vincia Jeffers, from front desk supervisor to resort assistant manager. I think that speaks well of our young people and our Division people who are moving up the ranks, and I would want to commend them and certainly commend the Four Seasons Resort for doing the necessary to ensure that our people are available for promotion and that their talent is being recognized and they are in fact being promoted. Let me move from congratulations and use this rostrum today to also extend some condolences to families that are mourning. We have been advised of the sudden and untimely death of businessman Stuart Jeffers, known to many as the Iceman. I was shocked to hear of his passing, his sudden passing, and I would want to extend my condolences to his wife Sheila, his children, and his entire family. Stuart was someone who was known and loved by all, a very critical part of the business environment here, the small business community in Nevis. And I certainly extend my heartfelt condolences on behalf of the government and my own family. Also, of course, Mr. Trevi Liebert, who went out to do what he loved, fishing, diving, and didn't come back to us alive. And the family would have sent a note that I would have read on air last evening, but certainly I would want to use this occasion to extend my condolences to his father, Joseph Liebert, and to his siblings, his own son, I think he has a son, and all of his loved ones. I think Trevor was somebody who we all knew. We all knew him as Trevi. He was a very close friend of mine, and I would want to extend my deepest condolences. In the Brown Hill community, I've lost a neighbor that I grew up with, Mr. Luther Williams, and I would want to extend condolences to his family and those that survive him, especially my friend and brother, Sam, who I grew up with, but also all of his children who have survived him. I extend my condolences to them and the entire Brown Hill community. And lastly, it would be remiss of me if I did not also extend condolences to the family of Harvey Pumby Boy Stapleton, whom we all knew well. Harvey shot to fame as a cricketer, bowler who took 10 wickets, all 10 wickets in a particular innings in a Leeward Islands tournament. And so I would want to extend condolences to his entire family, including my brother, Fitzroy Stocky Stapleton. And so, sad times, even as we celebrate the achievements of some, we are also, of course, cognizant that others are suffering, and so we extend our deepest condolences to them. Mr. Devon Liebert at the Nevis Tourism Authority, I would want to congratulate him. As we know, he has acted in the role of interim CEO of the Nevis Tourism Authority since January of this year, and he has now been confirmed in that role as a Chief Executive Officer. He will take up that role formally on July 1st. Devon, I remind you, is a career tourism professional. He has more than 20 years' experience in sales and marketing, and he has been employed at the NTA since its inception in 2001. He holds a BSc in Tourism Management from the University of the West Indies and an MSc in Strategic Tourism Management from the Serum European School of Business in France. He spent a little time with me last night and on the mark because, of course, we are going now into the Nevis Mango Festival, and that will be hosted from tomorrow, Friday, to Sunday, July 3rd. Friday will be the launch of the festival at the Cades Bay Orchard at 1 p.m. And for those who don't know where that is just across the street from the Seabridge area. Cades Bay Orchard. It's a very beautiful establishment, a leisure farm that we've created there. The activities there will include mango tasting, a mango eating competition, and a mixology competition. The Nevis Agricultural Department will be operating a number of grills, so there'll be a lot to eat, there'll be entertainment, and a well-stocked bar. On day 2 of the Mango Festival, registered patrons will be offered the opportunity to discover 10 unique off-the-beaten-track restaurants and snackets around the island. I should probably sign up to this, because as you all know, I like to go to the off-the-beaten-track little snackets and businesses and help to promote them. Well, the NTA is doing the same. And so once you sign up for the mom and pop restaurant tour, you'll be given a list and locations to these restaurants and snackets, and you can begin your self-guided tour after midday, and you're expected to pay, of course, for the food or drinks that you have. On Saturday evening, Catch It Restaurant, and that is on Government Road at Revere House, they will feature a supper club dining experience. Specially invited Chef Bridget Joseph of Trinidad will present a curated 4-course mango dinner. Prior to each course, Chef Bridget will talk about the course, after which it will be served to the patrons. The cost of this dinner experience is US $100, and reservations can be made directly with Catch It at Revere House. The big event for the Mango Festival will be held on Sunday, July 3rd from 1 p.m. at the now famous Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. It will feature a number of Nevis's best chefs as they prepare and present some of their best mango-themed dishes. The afternoon will also feature a master chef class by Chef Bridget, a chef cook-off competition, a wellness zone, an education zone, and a festival store. Tickets are available for purchase at the Nevis Tourism Authority. There are various tiers. You can buy a $50 ticket that will allow you to sample 5 dishes. A $75 ticket will allow you to sample 10 dishes. And a $100 ticket will allow you to sample 15 dishes. So if you go there extra hungry, I suggest that you get the $100 ticket. The NTA wishes to extend thanks to the sponsors of the Nevis Mango Festival. I'm told these include the Bank of Nevis International, MSR, SKN West Indies Limited, Rams, the Good Food People, Carib, and Digicel. The Culturama Night Market takes place at the Artisan Village on Saturday, July 9th from 6 p.m., and that has become a very popular event. That event will feature domino competition, Culturama, Kaiso, and Soca Monarch tent, local arts, crafts, etc. This concept of the night market was introduced, and I would want to give credit to the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. I think he was the first to introduce it for agriculture night markets, and now it's become quite popular. I noticed that even on St. Kitts, our sister island, the night market that he introduced over there as well has now become popular, and so we thank him for that innovation. Let me also announce that the St. Kitts and Nevis Restaurant Week 2022 is scheduled to run from July 14th to 24th, and during that 10-day period, more than 50 restaurants across St. Kitts and Nevis will feature creative dishes on their menus based on the local ingredient. And the local ingredient this year is sweet potato. The objective is to encourage the consumption of healthy local produce, as well as to promote business for local restaurants during the slow season. The last staging was in 2019, and of course, everything took a hiatus because of COVID. The Nevis Tasting Showcase for Restaurant Week will be held on Saturday, the 16th of July at the MGR Park, Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. A word now for our non-national community. The Premier's Ministry, through its Work Permits Office, is informing all non-nationals residing on Nevis who are in arrears of payment for work permits, annual residency, and visa extensions that an amnesty will be put in place from Friday, 1st July until Friday, 30th September 2022 for all outstanding amounts owing to the Nevis Island Administration. To encourage these individuals to regularize their status, the penalty for late application of visa extensions will be waived, and no fees will be charged for persons who have been out of status until 2021. Furthermore, the regular fee of $2,500 for work permits will be reduced to $1,000, and the regular fee for annual residence will be reduced to $750. All are asked to note that the regular fees of $600 for temporary residents without work and $500 for resident permit via marriage remain the same. So there's no concession on those. A flat fee of $1,500 will be charged for all outstanding time in its entirety up to 31st December 2019. There will be no charge for the years 2020 and 2021. Let me just explain that, because that sounds a little confusing. We realize that there have been some persons who have been here and for a variety of reasons are not in compliance. They have gone illegal because they have not come in and done what they're supposed to do. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated that problem. We've also realized that many of them, as we talk to them and as we go and we listen to people, are saying that they were not aware of previous waivers and previous amnesties that had been granted. And so they're living below the radar, so to speak, on the island. We want people living here to be comfortable. We think that as government, we have an obligation to all who live here. But we also want people who are living here to abide by the law. And that for us is also important. In the past, the government approach to non-nationals was to round them up and deport them. We have taken a different view. We have taken a more humane view. We have taken the position that our non-national community, particularly our Caribbean brothers and sisters, are us and we are them. And therefore, whatever we can do to ensure that they bring themselves within the law, we ought to do it. And that has been our position and a consistent position of the CCM-led government, starting as far as I have been in the political field and certainly continuing now. And that is, I think, the ethos that we've had, because we recognize that many Nevisians live in distant lands. And we would hope that where they live, they are treated with respect, they're treated with courtesy, they're treated humanely. And so what we're saying to those individuals who have been here and have not had a work permit or have not regularized themselves for some years, that we're asking you to come in now and to pay a flat fee of $1,500. So let us say, for example, that you did not have a permit for the last 5 years. I'm just drawing a reference. If you were asked to pay up for that, you would have to pay $2,500 times 5. And that, by my math, is $12,500. So we're saying we won't do that. Pay a flat fee of $1,500. get your stamps, get regularized, and then you will not have to pay for 2020 or for 2021. Going forward for 2022, instead of the $2,500, you'll pay $1,000. And for residency, instead of the usual $1,500, you'll pay $750. I don't think that you could ask for a better deal than that. And the reason I'm putting it this way is because I really don't want anybody to tell me that they didn't know, they didn't hear. So non-nationals, please come in and regularize your status. Take advantage of the opportunity to regularize. Get your work permit, get the stamps in your passport, regularize yourself so that you don't have to be going around and nobody can take advantage of you because you don't have your proper status. We are aware and we've had reports of people being underpaid, for example, because they don't have status. And we know because our own people have suffered these types of inhumane treatment in other lands, where people work you and don't want to pay you because they say you don't have status, so you can't do anything about it. We don't want that here. And this is a government that is prepared to work with people. We feel that that is our obligation, particularly, as I said, our Caribbean brothers and sisters. So whether you're from Guyana, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, Dominica, wherever you are from, you're living here now, you're contributing here, we want you to come in and regularize your status. So we're asking you to do that and to do that urgently. Now please remember, the reason I said urgently is because this amnesty expires on the 30th of September. So that means come 30th of September, everything goes back to the original price. So we're giving you from July 1st, all of July, all of August, all of September, 3 months for you to come in and get yourselves sorted out. I don't believe I can make a more passionate plea to our non-national community. Our team is waiting to work with you. Come in and sort yourselves out. You have from the 1st of July, that is tomorrow, until the 30th of September to do so. Let me just end on that note to move to another notice for the non-national community. I believe that during the height of the COVID pandemic, this government, through the cabinet, would have taken a decision about the vaccination requirement for persons to get a work permit or residency. And I know it was a controversial decision at the time, but it was a decision that we took because we thought it was a necessary decision to protect us and protect the island. We, again, have listened. We are also aware that the situation that existed when we took that decision is no longer the situation. What I mean by that is that I believe that we have learned a lot about COVID since then. We have learned a lot about how it operates. We've learned a lot about what we should do and shouldn't do. And I think that many of us have gone and heeded the advice and the encouragement to get vaccinated to protect ourselves. I'm standing here today and I like to tell people I'm vaxxed, double vaxxed and boosted. It doesn't mean that I can't get COVID, but my hope would be, based on the advice, that if I do get COVID, the symptoms will be mild. And I think that it is a matter that ought to be noted, that despite the recent spike in cases that we've had no hospitalizations and no deaths. And I think that that speaks to the success from the public health side of our efforts in relation to COVID. And so, as the circumstances change, we are adjusting as we go. And so I would want to announce today that, again to the non-national community living on the island of Nevis, that effective Friday, 1st July, that is tomorrow, all of you who are living here, and this is important, prior to the 1st of July, that effective from the 1st of July, submission of proof of vaccination will no longer be required when applying for a work permit or residency. However, this is important, all non-nationals arriving into Nevis and moving here for the first time to take up residence or to work will require proof of vaccination. So we're making a distinction for non-nationals who are already living here. And we're saying if you're already living here and you're coming in to renew your work permit or renew your residency, you no longer require proof of vaccination. But if you are, for example, a Four Seasons manager who they are flying in from Colorado to start work here, they will have to show proof of vaccination in order to get a work permit for the first time. So we're making a distinction, and that is designed to ensure that the people who are already here, I spoke to one young man, for example, who said he had been here for 12 years. He says, some medical issues why he could not access the vaccine. And that young man was being prevented from renewing his work permit because of the policy. So we have refined the policy to say that if you are already on NEVIS, living here, working here, you can now renew your work permit, you can now renew your residency without the need to show proof of vaccination. However, if you are coming in for the first time to get work or you're coming in to seek residence, then at that point you will have to show that you are vaccinated. So I hope that I'm clear on that, but I'm certain that if I'm not clear, the press will ensure that I clarify. So that is the position, and I'm happy that those two items will provide some relief to the non-national community here on the island of Nevis. The Ministry of Education, Department of Education, so the Early Childhood Unit celebrated Child Month during the month of June. The theme for this year is Recycle, Save the Earth for Our Children's Future. There was a packed month, with the highlights being the Child Month March on June 10th. I was very happy to participate in that with other members of Cabinet. And also the Dancing Stars concert on June 15th, Meet the Education Officials on Fun Day on June 23rd, and the Prince and Princess Pageant, which I'm told took place at NEPAC last night. 10 preschools were represented, and I gather that they did exceedingly well. The final activity will be a recycling drive where schools are challenged to collect plastic bottles, and that culminates today. There will be a ceremony and drop-off at the Sustainable Recycling Facility at Long Point on Monday, the 4th of July, 2022. Highest commendations to the team at the Department of Education, especially the Early Childhood Unit, the Early Childhood Supervisors, and teachers and staff for an excellent and well-executed month of activities. We also yesterday put on a special fun day for all the athletes who took part in the Gulf Insurance Inter-Primary Schools Championship this year, and we know that that was a resounding success. We had the bouncing castle, video games, cricket, volleyball. Really and truly, they had an excellent time. There was lots to eat and drink for all, and it was an all-day affair there yesterday. This is a small way for the government, through the Ministry of Education, showing appreciation for all the outstanding performances that the athletes would have displayed on that day of our mini Olympics. For prospective teachers, we would have commenced our prospective teachers course on June 20th with field exercises. Some 62 persons applied for the program. Commendations to the applicants on taking this important first step, and we wish you the best as you navigate this process. Let me congratulate schools that have already had their graduation ceremonies. The Montessori Academy and the Nevis Academy, they would have had their ceremonies on the 28th of June. And unfortunately, I have a clash because the Charleston Primary is having their ceremony as I am hosting this press conference. I would want them to know that there was little that I could do to change, but nevertheless, wish them, the staff, the principal, and the students all the very best. All primary school ceremonies will be held at NEPAC, and the Ministry of Education continues to provide support with the setup for the graduations. The 2021-2022 academic year will end tomorrow, July 1st, for students and July 8th for teachers. We wish our students an enjoyable summer vacation. To our teachers and staff, I take this opportunity on behalf of the Cabinet and the government to say thank you for your hard work, dedication, and contribution to molding the lives of our children. We also wish you an enjoyable and relaxing summer break. You certainly, teachers, deserve it. Let me pivot to the Ministry of Health. On Friday, the 24th of June, the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs, Community Health Nursing Services, and the Maternity Ward Services at the Alexandra Hospital held the official launch of their Maternity Guide booklet, a very significant development. This guide covers the routine antenatal care that women and their unborn should receive and aims to ensure that pregnant women are offered regular checkups, information, and support during their pregnancy. Major contributors were the nurses and midwives in community health and those at the maternity ward. We would wish to give special acknowledgement to the publisher and designer, Miss Wei Su, a volunteer of the Taiwan ICDF and the Health Promotion Unit who assisted with the compilation. The week of June 20th saw the in-country visit of PAHO WHO International Health Regulation Advisor, Mr. Colin Brown. The International Health Regulations 2005 is a legally binding agreement of 196 countries to build the capability to detect and report potential health emergencies worldwide. Mr. Brown would have visited the relevant stakeholders in Nevis and also facilitated a 3-day workshop on port health and surveillance. The overall objective of the visit and training was to strengthen our capacity to detect, assess, report, and respond to public health risks, providing guidance and training tools to assist us in meeting our obligations. And we have to be vigilant, because even as we hope that we are now getting past COVID-19, we have heard of monkeypox and other developments. So we must continue to do what we must to protect ourselves. The Nevis Health Promotion Unit and the St. Kitts and Nevis National HIV Program, with support from the OECS HTEP Global Fund grant, held a series of workshops aimed at reducing HIV-related stigma and discrimination. Participants were expected to acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed for stigma reduction using education and advocacy activities, with an emphasis on creating safe and user-friendly spaces where clients, especially those from the key population, can access services. The general public is advised that June 7th, the community psychiatric services were relocated from the Alexandra Hospital to the building formerly known as the Prospect Senior Citizens Home in the vicinity of the Ivor Walters Primary School and the Cicely Brown Integrated School. They can be reached at 469-5614 or 660-9551. And let me just explain that, because I think that's an important development. And we have seen, unfortunately, since COVID, an increase in the number of persons who are seeking mental health support. And we understand the pressures of COVID. People were cooped up, locked down, people lost jobs, people couldn't pay their bills. There was widespread frustration and anxiety. And some people, as a result, needed mental health assistance. We saw the need, and we have decided that we would have outgrown the small facility that we had at the Alexandra Hospital. And we have a facility that we had outfitted, if you recall, in the event that we needed to isolate persons due to COVID at Prospect. And so that facility is now the home of the community psychiatric services. And I would want to commend again the team at the Ministry of Health for the excellent work that they have been doing. I am almost done, members of the press, bear with me. Public Works, they have reported that the Butlers Road project continues apace. The section of the main village road from Domino College to the range is being prepared to receive its final grading and its first asphalt layer. And we are now proceeding with the excavation of the section of roadway from the range to the Adventist Church. The Bath Road project is also continuing, and we will shortly mobilize in Bath Village to demolish and reconstruct some property walls, fences within the section of roadway between the old Maud Smith Preschool and the road to the housing project. This section of roadway would include significant amounts of land acquisition on the western side of the existing roadway. Also in Bath, the Water Department will continue the laying of water mains heading to the Bellevue Road intersection. Within now and next reporting period, major pipe works is expected to be undertaken at the Bellevue and Bath Road intersection. Some major works at this location will be done to synchronize water main installation. These works include installation of a pipe culvert at Bellevue, along with a concrete box drain and the construction of walls at the intersection area. Notice of road closures and alternate routing will be given to the general public. Also good to announce to the Methodist community that we have started the reconstruction of the stone wall that we had to demolish there to do the road construction there. The welding and body repair shop at Government Garage, that will be substantially completed this week. And we are done essentially with the works at the Netwall complex, and I will say a bit more of that later. The department has also been engaging with some road construction at Malcolm Hill, that's in the Prospect area, and we are doing that to bring some relief to persons there in that area. The new fuel depot canopy and dispenser system, those have been successfully installed at the government repair shop. The system was tested by salt technicians on Friday, 24th of June. The system is ready to be used, but we await the official confirmation from salt. Work continues at Church Ground on the culvert reconstruction and accompanying road construction project. We apologize again to the residents of Church Ground for the inconvenience, but we are told that this work should be completed by mid-July. The work on the Cotton Ground retaining wall was delayed because we had some design issues and some back and forth, you know, the engineers, the technical team, they were debating that, but I'm told that the contractor has been remobilized and that work is ongoing, so the relief will come. That, of course, pose a danger to the Cotton Ground community for quite some time. And I would want to thank Latoya Jones, the advisor to the Premier on community matters. She was one who advocated very strongly that that road be done. And thank, of course, Spencer Brandon, the team at Public Works, who responded positively to that call from the Cabinet. The Ministry of Communications has also contracted Mr. Elmos Grant to undertake repairs to the Stonewall Barrier and the Bowen Bridge in Gingerland. Just about 80 feet of the dilapidated stone wall was rebuilt during the month of April, and that eliminates the hazard. Water. Water is life. And as you know, this government has invested, following on the investments made by the previous government, considerably in water. And that's one thing I would say there should be no debate on. Both governments have really focused heavily on water. I would say our record is better than the previous government, but I must give them credit because they too focused on water during their time. The Bath Village pipe installation commenced on May 10th, and that, as I said, coincides with the Bath reconstruction on the road. Malcolm Hill project I've mentioned, we're doing waterworks there as well because our approach is wherever we do roads, we put in upgraded water distribution systems. The water storage tank at Zetlands, that work commenced on June 6th. We have removed the old tank and we are now ready for the installation of a brand new water storage tank there. The Nevis Water Department also initiated a water management program which commenced on May 21st. Now that water management program was necessary because of the extensive drought that we've been having. That if areas affected initially were from Maddens to Jessops in the northern section of the island. But to spread the management across the island and to balance the system, we also introduced some water rationing in the southern areas as well, Zion to Cherry Gardens via Beach Road. Please note that the water rationing was relaxed on June 20th on the account of some recent rainfall that we had. And so the system is constantly trying to respond. That doesn't mean we are out of the woods. It's simply telling you that we are responsive. Those at Water Department are looking carefully. When we do get some rains and the system is topped up naturally, then, of course, we relax the water management. We are, however, continuing to appeal to our people to be prudent in their use of water and to conserve as much as possible. The Nevis Labour Department will have a career fair 2022, again at the Malcolm Guichard Park, and this will be from 11 July to 14 July. Skills development and opportunities for a brighter future. That is the theme that they will use. Culturama, Culturama, Culturama. The Caribbean's greatest summer lime. The launch was held on Friday, the 17th June at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. And during that launch, we had the promotional jingle and video for the festival was released. The patron, my good friend, William Zumbai the Guy Doe, was also named, I think, a fitting patron in Mr. Doe. And a number of sponsorship checks were presented during the launch, and committee members were also introduced. As Culturama draws closer, we would have had a reveal party hosted at the David Freeman Center of Excellence on Saturday, the 18th of June. The Miss Culture Swimwear contestants are Miss Solid Waste Management Authority Chantel Leslie, Miss Stella's Engineering Melissa Gums, Miss Caribbean Digital Display Shaquania Jeffers, and Miss Flo Keelia English. Mr. Cool, participants, Minister of Agriculture Dylan Smithon, Mr. Nevis Culturama Committee Shanwai Joseph, Mr. Nevis Tourism Authority Dwayne Smith, and Mr. Nevis Cultural Development Foundation Rocco Brown. Rocco, as I said earlier, is a great masquerade dancer, and now we know a great footballer as well. Well, Rocco is coming also for the Mr. Cool competition, so he clearly is a multi-talented youngster. The Miss Culture Swimming and Mr. Cool contest will be hosted at the Culturama Complex on Tuesday, July 26th. 5 contestants will vie for Miss Culture crown. They are Cynthia Williams, sponsored by Nevlec; Shalise Smitten, sponsored by SL Hosford and Company Limited; Shamali Newton, sponsored by the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank; Shalisa Paris, sponsored by the Nevis Host and Land Development Corporation; and Raquel Hendrickson, I hope I said that correctly, sponsored by Flow. The Miss Culture Queen Pageant will be hosted on July 31st at the Cultural Complex. The contestants who will participate in the Talented Youth Pageant will be introduced to the public tomorrow, Friday, July 1st, at Action Corner in the Cotton Ginnery Mall in Charlestown. Currently, members of the press and members of the public, we are aware that individuals are benefiting from a first aid and lifeguard training initiative organized by the Department of Sports in collaboration with the Four Seasons Resort and the Four Seasons Homeowners Association. The training commenced on Tuesday, June 28th, is being facilitated by Brandon and Bryce Bond of the United States, and participants are drawn from Swim to Win, Red Cross, Coast Guard, ferry operators, and persons who deal with aquatic sports. Now, some good news that I want to share and to invite everyone to the ceremony to mark the reopening of the Mecca of netball here on Nevis, the brand new refurbished Cicely Grell Hull Doris Stevens Netball Complex. Those words are well put together, brand new refurbished. Well, the newly refurbished netball complex, the work that has been done up there is simply incredible. And I really would want people to go out. We know that netball has been on a bit of a hiatus. We've had some games being played in Brown Hill. But the Mecca of netball is really that facility that was purpose-built for netball, the Cicely Grell Hull Doris Stevens Netball Complex. Well, we reopen it this afternoon. I'm told that the Netball League is going to start. There will be a march through town, and then it culminates there at 5:30. One and all are asked to come out and be a part of that. Lastly, the Department of Youth, in partnership with Girls Care JA, is currently hosting the first ever St. Kitts and Nevis Girls Climate Summit at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. Girls Care is a feminist climate activist movement that aims to create a space and empower young women to advocate for gender justice in climate action. It has created a membership program for young females throughout the region to aid in enhancing their capacity to help in climate advocacy. 3 of our youth officers were selected to be a part of the 2022 cohort for the Girls Care Mentorship Program, namely Cordesia Walters, Keshana Stapleton, and Aaliyah Powell. As part of their final project, the youth officers have decided to host a summit entitled St. Kitts and Nevis Girls Climate Summit, Conversations on Climate Action and Climate Justice. It brings me, ladies and gentlemen, to the final matter that I would want to raise. And it is a matter that is political, but I think more than being political, it goes to the heart of who we are as a people and as a country. And whilst it is a matter involving the island of St. Kitts, we are one federation, and anything that happens there affects us over here as well. And that has to do with the decision of the Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, or as I like to call him, the former Prime Minister, because he no longer commands a majority of elected representatives. He no longer commands the support. Whatever you want to use to describe him, I like to refer to him as the honorable member for number 7. He would have decided that he would start the construction of a prison on St. Kitts. 300 inmate facility that he took the decision that he would start. Now, I would want the members of the press to be aware that this prison facility was discussed in the cabinet and in fact was approved in the budget of 2021. read by Dr. Harris as Minister of Finance and Prime Minister in December of 2021. And the budget amount for the prison was EC $88 million. To put that in context, US dollars, 32 million US dollars. That was the cost of the prison that came to the cabinet at the federal level and made its way into the budget documents of 2021. At some point, that cost for that prison has ballooned from 88 million EC dollars to somewhere now in the vicinity of 2.5 billion EC dollars. How that has happened, we don't know. But what I will say today is that at 2.5 billion EC dollars, it will be the most expensive prison ever built in the world. It will be the largest and most expensive project ever done in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. To put it in context for you, 2.5 billion EC dollars is 962 million US. The proposals that we had to build a bridge between St. Kitts and Nevis came out at 400 million US dollars. So this jail is costing more than 2 times the cost of the bridge between St. Kitts and Nevis. To put that in further context for you, we have heard a lot being said that the people of Nevis received 400 million EC dollars over 7 years from citizenship by investment. And many have been saying that that ought to be enough. And that because we have agitated and said that that is not fair, it is not equitable based on what we know the program is earning. And that if we were getting the 25% share based on a population pro rata basis, as we had agreed, that Nevis should have had over $1 billion coming to the island. Instead, we got 400 million. And the refrain that we get is that we ought to be grateful. What are we making noise about? And I, as the Premier of Nevis, for standing up, I have been accused of being greedy. All kinds of things have been said. But I would want our people to reflect that the cost of this prison now at $2.5 billion is more than 6 times the EC 400 million that the people of Nevis have received over 7 years. It means, therefore, that one prison in St. Kitts is more than 7 years' worth of receipts for the Nevis Island administration from the Citizenship by Investment program. I will go further. I have in front of me a publicly available document, the 2022 estimates, again from the budget, read in December of 2021 by Dr. Timothy Harris. And those estimates are instructive because it puts the total revenue and grants anticipated for 2022 for the entire federal government at $913,572,857. $913,572,857. It means, therefore, members of the press and members of the public, that this jail is costing more than 2.5 times the entire budget of St. Kitts and Nevis for 2022. And I want you all to think about these things, reflect on them. Because now we're hearing, oh, what's the big issue? It's not costing us anything. And I don't understand this argument about it's not costing us. Because amounts were put into the budget, $88 million. We're now hearing that this project was approved in September last year. Well, it's an interesting thing because the budget was read in December of last year. So you must ask the question, well, if this was approved in September of last year, how is it in the budget of 2021? We have it listed at $88 million. And at what point did the tally move? Did the cost move to 2.5 billion? 27 times as much. And you know, the answer came to us yesterday. If you listened to the press conference that was held, I call it the prison press conference because that is really what it was about, to try and respond, to diffuse this real substantial issue, this elephant in the room of this jail, that they called on Mr. Les Can, who's the CEO of the Citizenship by Investment Unit, to deal with this whole issue. And I thought it instructive because Mr. Can said that we who are talking about the jail are simply multiplying the number of shares, 5,500, by 175,000 US. That is how we are coming up with the number. If you do that 5,500 shares times 175,000 US, you get 962 million US dollars. Times 2.7, that's how you get to the 2.5 billion EC dollars. He says that's wrong, because the shares will be sold at market price, whatever the market will fetch. Members of the press, I want you all to consider what that means, because there have been constant accusations and allegations that our Citizenship by Investment program is being bastardized, it's being undersold. Dr. Harris once accused Dr. Douglas as Prime Minister of selling passport like black pudding. Now it looks like we're selling passport like sugar cake. The cost of it, the price of it, mark you, the legislation prescribes what the price should be. But here we had a senior official yesterday admitting that the government essentially accepts, agrees that they are not selling at the prescribed price that the law mandates. And now you start to understand why it is that 5,500 shares were given to these Chinese people to build a jail. Because if they're not selling it at the prescribed price, it means that they're selling it for whatever they could get. So maybe it's 10,000 US, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20. And they therefore need more shares to try and make up in order to be able to build that prison. That is really what is going on here. That is the scandal that is happening. I'm not even going to get into who can make money off of this jail, because I noticed that all the presenters skirted and hemmed and hawed, but none of them are talking about who got the contracts, who's doing the site clearing, who's doing the security, who's going to process the applications. Because I'm gathering it's one firm closely associated with those who hold the levers of power in St. Kitts. So ask yourself those questions. Now I'm being told that the cabinet approved the jail. That is the refrain, that is the response. The cabinet approved a lot of things. The jail that I know cabinet approved went into the budget at $88 million. The jail that we are now hearing about is $2.5 billion. So we have to understand why that cost jumped from there, 88 to 2.5. But I would also note for the record that since cabinet business is now public business, and let us all make it public. We took an oath. I am no longer in the cabinet, but I would have thought the oath still bound me. But I hear people saying all who said what in cabinet. We must not allow the record to be distorted, because in cabinet we also approved the brand new Basti High School. We approved universal health insurance so that all of you here in this room and all of us who are listening, people who cannot afford to buy insurance for health, that they would have access to health insurance and therefore access to adequate medical care. We all see people who have been going around asking for donations to help them with medical situations. In fact, this government that I lead, this year already, we've already paid out almost $500,000 to assist persons who need medical assistance and cannot afford it. Universal health insurance was intended to solve that problem. We made that decision. We made the decision that the people in St. Kitts, especially those in Keon, because if you all think water condition in Eve is bad, you go to St. Kitts, it's 10 times worse over there. People in places like Keon for years have suffered. And we made the decision that we must explore desalination, we must have drilling for water, so that the people of Keon and the surrounding areas could get some relief. We made the decision for marijuana industry. In fact, it is something we promised our people, that we would develop this industry. Somebody sent me a clip just this morning from one of my favorite friends and MPs, Lisa Hanna in Jamaica, in the opposition making a passionate plea for the marijuana industry, saying that if Jamaica continues to dawdle and delay, by the time they're ready, Jamaican ganja will be no longer any relevance, because you'll have it all around the world. We all know that in any industry, the early movers get benefits. If you come in last, then by the time you come in, what is there? The early shakers and movers, the early innovators, those are the ones who benefit. And we have promised, made decisions in the cabinet, nothing has happened. So you hear how many decisions I told you they passed the high school. Water for Kian, universal health insurance, ganja industry, and I could go on. And I'm asking the fundamental question, why all of those were left at the bottom of the pile, but the jail was pulled up to the top? Why? And nobody seems capable of answering that particular question. Why? How is it that this jail became the priority? And I have said that any country anywhere in the world that prioritizes incarceration over education is a failed state, is a failed government, failed leadership. Any leader that prioritizes incarceration over health is a failed leader. And that has to be taken on board. They talk about what we're doing in Nevis. In Nevis, we're investing in sustainable development. You see where we're opening this afternoon? The new netball complex. Mecca for netball, so that people can go back to playing netball. We're lighting all of our fields in Nevis at the moment. We're investing in the hospital. When that is done, it will be a brand new state-of-the-art facility. Shortly, we will have a 128-slice CT scan machine here, the second in the entire OECS. Grenada just got one 2 months ago. I say all that to say that we are investing in our people in sustainable ways. A jail can't build nobody. Who's the jail intended for? In our closest neighbor, the United States, big brother to the north, they have this notion of an industrial jail complex. Members of the press know what I'm talking about. They build these prisons. Once they build them, what happens? You have to fill them. Because prisons need people in them, you know. For the dance to play, for the lights, they need inmates. Well, who are going to be the inmates? This is a Minister of National Security who has said to us that violent crime is down. The peace program is working. Crime is now the lowest that it has been. So in the response to a lowest crime rate that it has been, a peace program that is working, the response is to build a $2.5 billion jail. But who going into jail? You all remember, you know, there was a proposal, I think it was Cameron, Prime Minister of UK. And he had proposed, I believe, to build a jail in Jamaica. You all remember that, members of the press? So the UK will build a jail in Jamaica, and they're going to send prisoners to Jamaica. So Jamaica will be an offshore prison. Just like they came out with this proposal to take asylum seekers and send them to Rwanda. That's a recent furor in the UK. And I do not know if this jail is intended to house inmates from elsewhere. Maybe as part of this industrial jail complex that Timothy Harris has in his head, he will import prisoners from around the region or around the world. And if he doesn't do that, then who is going to fill that jail? I invite our people to look critically at these matters, because across the world, the people who are in jail are people who are young, people who are black, people who are brown, people who are poor. Those are the people mostly we find in our prisons. In my view, if we had $2.5 billion to spend, If we wanted to generate that amount of money from the sale of our passport, then there are far better projects that we could have done. You hear what I said to you? The bridge cost was 400 million US. Just about $1 billion EC. This jail is going to cost 2.5 times the cost of the bridge between St. Kitts and Nevis. Could you imagine what a bridge will do to generate economic activity, commerce? Could you imagine you land at RLB, you jump in your car and you drive home? Could you imagine Kitchens come over for Culturama, they get on the bridge, they go on home, we go on for music festival, we get on the bridge, we come home. Transformative. Tell me what a jail is going to do. What? At $2.5 billion, I am surmising that that jail must have golf course, spa, several fine dining establishments, tennis courts, certainly a gym or two. And it has to be that that jail will be fully air conditioned. I said the other day, jokingly, that if this jail project at that price were to continue, by next year music festival, I think most of us would prefer to check in there than to check into the Marriott or check into a hotel, because it will have to be a 5-diamond facility at that price. You know, perspective is good. And I got some costing of prisons in the United States. The estimated cost to build an institution varies, they said, in the US between 98 million US and 162 million US. Our jail, remember, was estimated in the budget to cost 88 million EC or 32 million US. So let's deal with US money now. Our jail was estimated in the 2021 budget to cost 32 million US dollars, forgive me. 32 million US dollars or 88 million EC. This document that I have in front of me is telling me that in America, the estimated cost to build a jail varies between 98 million US and 162 million US. And they have examples, you know. They're doing a US penitentiary, high security. One they're doing in Big Sandy, Inez, KY. I was wondering what it meant, but several people told me it meant Kentucky. So Big Sandy, Inez, Kentucky, to hold 1,088 inmates. And the cost, 162 million US. Our jail, to hold 300 inmates, is costing 962 million. 800 million US dollars more than the most expensive jail in America. I think our people need to open their eyes and start to ask these questions. The jail here in Big Sandy, Inez, Kentucky, KY, to house 1,088 inmates is costing the US government $162 million, and that is a high security US penitentiary. And we are telling sensible people in Little St. Kitts and Nevis that to build a 300 inmate facility is costing us 962 million US or 2.5 billion EC. There's a Calypsonian, I think, who said his name was Match Too Hard. And I believe that this match here is way too hard for most of us. There are other prisons here. Bennettsville, South Carolina, to hold 1,280 inmates, 102 million US. Forest City, Arizona, to hold 1,152 inmates, 98 million US. Right? Hurlong, California, to hold 1,280 inmates, 130 million US. And it goes on. Why is it that a prison to hold 300 inmates in St. Kitts and Nevis, a poor black country in the Caribbean, is costing 800 million US dollars more than the most expensive prison in the United States? A prison in the United States which is designed to hold more than 3 times the number of inmates. If that doesn't worry members of the press, if that doesn't worry people here in St. Kitts and Nevis, then I don't know what else to say. I will say one final thing before I open for comments. I have in my hand here a document. It says it's Statutory Rules and Orders number 7 of 2022. St. Christopher Nevis Citizenship by Investment Amendment Regulations 2022. And you may ask yourself, well, why is this document relevant? I'll tell you why. Because we are hearing that this jail project was approved in September of last year. That is the argument that is coming from the remnants of government that we have. These regulations, number 7 of 2022, deal specifically with the issue of the alternative investment. The point that I'm trying to make here is that these regulations were signed by Timothy Harris on the 12th of May, 2022, and were gazetted on the 19th of May, 2022. But members of the press and members of the public, Timothy Harris dissolved the parliament on the 10th of May. Put differently, it is only after the parliament had been dissolved and the parliamentary life had been brought to an end by him that he sought to put these things in place, if you will, to seek to validate the prison project and the monies under this alternative investment program. Regulations were made on the 12th of May, 2 days after Parliament had been dissolved, and were not published in the Gazette until the 19th of May. So there's now an issue, in my respectful view, of the legality of this entire process. Because you're basically telling me now that you're passing regulations after the dissolution of Parliament to validate a scheme for jail that you said was approved in September of last year. That would be for the lawyers. I haven't practiced law in a long time, but I think that the members of the press should pay attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I will leave it there and certainly invite your questions, whatever they may be. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, members of the public, and also to my media colleagues. Okay, first question, and my name is Shamika Budgeon, and I'm from Vaughan Radio. My first question this morning, are there any updates on the missing teen of Bath Village, Mr. Kelvin Williams? And also, were there any search efforts done for this teenager? Question 2. It is understood from the last COVID report that we are back in double digits with positive cases in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Can you give an update on this as Cultrama 48 is swiftly approaching? And my final question. The partially decomposed body that was found in the Montpelier area, maybe some 2 weeks ago, has that body been properly identified? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your questions. On the last question about the identification of the body, I have no information on that. That will all, of course, normally come from the police. And I have not been advised, Pierce, we have not been advised as yet on that. The COVID update, Ms. Budgeon, as I said earlier, we have an uptick in cases. I'm not surprised because the thousands of people that were at the music festival in close proximity to each other, that we should expect an uptick in cases. I have said publicly that I believe that the preoccupation now with number of cases is perhaps doing us a disservice because we recognize that there will be cases. I think what we need to focus on is continuing the effort to get our people vaccinated, and in terms of statistics, to look at the number of hospitalizations and the number of deaths. Because if people are getting COVID, but because they're vaccinated, it is mild, a very slight cough, in 2 days it's gone, I don't see that that presents any alarm for us, because all of us have had a cold, we understand how that works. To me, what is critical is for us to start to track who's been hospitalized, and sadly, if anyone, who's dying. So, Culture Armor is happening. I think that right now, the restrictions have been relaxed to the point where people are going out, people are partying. We saw a music festival, that's the best example. I saw one photo, an aerial photo of the crowd on Saturday night, and I'm surprised that the park didn't sink, because I couldn't imagine that there could be so many people in attendance at a single event. It was a massive crowd. In fact, we got some numbers from NASPA, which told us that over the weekend of music festival, some 8,049 people used the Nevis ports. And remember, that doesn't include the sewage. So just from Wally and town, 8,049 passengers moved over the course of that weekend. And so that, I think, again, is significant in terms of the level of support that the people of Nevis would have given to the music festival. The missing teen from Bath Village, a very, very tragic situation. The short answer is that I have no update on that. I was very saddened because by the time the circular went out about the teen, he had, I believe, based on what I saw, been missing since April. I think that was the date that I saw it. So by the time that circular came out, he had already been missing for well over a month. And so I don't know what happened or why it was not reported earlier to the authorities, but by the time it came to my attention, it came to the attention of the authority. If you look at the bulletin that the police sent out, the actual date when he was last seen was more than a month prior. And so, again, I don't know what happened. He's a youngster, I believe only about 18 years old, and so I continue to hope for the best.
But are these questions being asked in terms of why did it take so long?
Well, that would be a matter for the police, obviously. The police are the ones charged with these investigations, not me or not my office. But I would think that that is being asked as to why it is that it took that long to report someone missing. I do not know what the facts are surrounding those circumstances. But in terms of search, in terms of putting teams together, you could well understand that the lapse of time renders that very difficult to do. When something happened immediately, as I believe there was a report of a young lady some time ago missing, people were able to mobilize immediately and search the areas. At the end of the day, of course, she was unharmed, and we're very grateful for that. But where it is that time has gone by, it makes it very difficult. So I do not have an update on that particular situation, except to call on our people who may have information to come forward and try to assist us and bring some closure for the family in terms of this youngster. I'm hopeful that despite the passage of time, that the youngster is found alive and well. Any other messages for any other questions, I'm sorry, for me? Forgive me.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Devon Cornelius, Win FM. Just a few questions. In what way has COVID-19 affected the NIA's expenditure and the last two budget cycles? Next question is, what is the status of the Alexandra Hospital in terms of the works that are happening there? The Prime Minister recently alleged that discarding team unity started as early as 2015, when he claimed that you attempted to stop him from being sworn in as Prime Minister and had supported another member for that position. What is your response to that allegation? And lastly, it was said in yesterday's press conference that Spencer Brand, the Public Works Minister in the NIA cabinet, is a developer associated with the CBI program under the alternative investment option and is set to benefit from a US $44 million project. What is the project? And I also have a few questions from Andre Huey of SKN Newsline. Was the Premier not aware of these issues with the prison project when it was brought before the cabinet? Why were these issues not raised before now? And some may consider this move now to speak out on the issue as politically expedient. Do you believe that the electorate is taking these concerns seriously as raised by you and Mr. Richards? Or are they indifferent because of who is conveying the message? Thanks.
Okay, you've asked a mouthful, Mr. Cornelius, as always. Excellent questions. COVID-19 expenditure, clearly it has impacted us. We had to put a lot of projects on hold. We were interrupted in terms of our public works and infrastructural development. We had to take resources that were allocated to some ministries and reallocate them to health to try and support the effort. Remember, it was an all-of-society approach, and every resource that we had, we tried to put it there. We also, of course, with our income drastically reduced because our hotel sector was closed, and our hotel sector remains the most dominant part of the economic engine here in Nevis. With that offline, we also had to borrow and to shift again resources to ensure that our public servants, our pensioners were paid on time and in full. And I continue to be quite proud of the fact that we were able to do that over such a difficult period. So yes, there was an impact on our expenditure. We're seeing now some slight normalization. I just got this week some numbers from our Ministry of Finance here. I have, however, not been able to analyze them as yet, so I won't be able to get into any detail. But based on the trend, it looks like we are slowly recovering in terms of our revenue stream, and therefore we hope to have our budget ambitions realized. Alexandra Hospital, I think we're making good progress there. The windows have all arrived and are being installed. I think that we were delayed because they were being manufactured, but we now have them in place. I think that all of the issues that we're having about supply chain issues have been impacting us as well. But if you were to go there, and I invite you to go there, and members of the press, you will see that the windows are now all being installed at the hospital. And once that is done, we are then, of course, proceeding to just the interior work that needs to be completed. You say that Dr. Harris said that I tried to stop him from being sworn in 2015. I'm not aware of that. I had no such indications in 2015. If you realize, I was one of the chief proponents of Team Unity. I campaigned in St. Kitts, I campaigned in Nevis, and he was the person who was chosen to lead Team Unity. CCM was led at the time by the Honorable Vaccination, not by me. So I don't know what he's talking about in relation to that. If he were to say 2020, I would say he's right, because I said to the team in 2020, let us change directions. I'm not going to resile from that. I don't stand at this podium to mislead anybody. As Premier of Nevis, I always come and I try to tell the press and the public the truth. In 2020, I said, let us change gears, because I had already seen all the signs exhibited by Timothy Harris. That position did not find favor, and so we proceeded to have him again as Prime Minister. It will be for history to judge whether or not I was right, because 2 years later we see what has happened. So if he says that in 2015, that is not true. In 2020, absolutely. The position of the CCM was that we did not wish to go down the road with Timothy Harris as Prime Minister. So I make that clear. Spencer Brand as a developer. You know, I think it is unfortunate, Mr. Cornelius, that Timothy Harris continues to try to mislead and try to drag people's names. And, you know, what I find is even more regrettable is that he throws out these things and people just grab at it. I saw the young lady who was running for the NRP against Spencer Brand. Somebody sent me something she immediately put out, condemning Spencer Brand because Spencer Brand has a CBI project. And I think, you know, sometimes we need to be a little more cautious. And sometimes when people put out their trash, we should leave it there for the garbage men to collect, rather than jumping and running with it. So let me explain to you. Mr. Brand has indicated to me, as Premier of Nevis and Head of Cabinet, that he will make a formal statement himself to respond to what he considers a vicious attack by the Prime Minister, or, as I like to call him, the former Prime Minister. All right? The details that I have that I can share with you prior to his address is to say that Mr. Brand and his wife would have purchased 5 acres of land from a private landowner back in 2008. The dates are important. So Mr. Brand, like any one of us, purchased some land. He's a private citizen in 2008, and he and his wife decided to invest and bought some lands from a private owner. No government is involved. I don't think anybody could criticize him for investing. Mr. Brand is an architect, as we know. he decided that he wanted to develop his lands. And so he developed a plan. His plan to develop his lands under the Citizenship by Investment program that everybody else was doing. Four Seasons is doing it. Dion Daniel is doing it. Greg Hartman and his team are doing it. In St. Kitts, you have all kinds of developments up and down that are Citizenship by Investment developments. So, he would have indicated that he developed a plan to do, and I think this is important, a 70-room hotel, conference room, gym, spa, restaurant and club, a deli, a mini mart, a swimming pool, and parking. So he was doing a 70-room hotel with all the amenities on his 5 acres of land that he bought, and he told me that he bought it with the benefit of a loan from a commercial bank here. He submitted whatever he submitted in 2014, Mr. Cornelius, and got his approval in November of 2014 from the NIA, headed at the time by the Honorable Vaccination. He then got approval from the federal government in November of 2015, what they call approval in principle. That is the standard approach. And that, therefore, he would have been approved by the government by November 2015, headed by Timothy Harris. What is of note is that Mr. Brand did not become a member of cabinet or a member of the NIA until December 17, 2017. December 17, 2017 is over 2 years. Over 2 years after he had already received his approval in St. Kitts. So I am not understanding what this hullabaloo is about. The effort to mislead was to suggest that Mr. Brand is a sitting member of cabinet in Nevis and Mr. Brand has some project. Well, when was Mr. Brand's project approved? Mr. Brand's project occurred when Mr. Brand was a private citizen, long before he became a member of government. And he has his letters and he has his dates. Mr. Brand's project has never come before my cabinet in which he sits. It went before the cabinet of Vance Emery, of blessed memory. 2014, November, was when it was approved. And then it went to St. Kitts and was approved in November 2015. And Mr. Brand was elected by the good people of St. Paul's in December 17, 2017. But you know, I'm happy that Dr. Harris has raised Mr. Brand, you know, because sometimes when you are on this effort to mislead, you put yourself in a bit of a pickle. First of all, Mr. Brand's project could not be under the alternative investment because that did not exist in 2014 or 2015. I just read you the statutory rules. Let me go back to it. Number 7 of 2022. And the date on it, he signed it on the 12th of May, Dr. Harris. And it was gazetted on the 19th of May, 2022. You hear what I tell you? Mr. Brand's project was approved in principle since November 2015, 7 years before the alternative investment program came into being. So what is the connection between Mr. Brand and the alternative investment? Absolutely no connection. The second thing I want you to note, Mr. Cornelius, is that Mr. Brand proposed a 70-room hotel, conference room, gym, spa, restaurant, club, deli, mini-mart, swimming pool, and parking. And you know how many shares Mr. Brand got? 220. Timothy Harris proposed a jail and gave the Chinese 5,500 shares. Mr. Brand proposed a 70-room hotel and got 220 shares. Consistent with the Park Hyatt. The Park Hyatt did a 5-star luxury resort in St. Kitts with 225 shares that now employs people. Mr. Brand, I believe, was set to employ some 70 or so people. And as I said, he will speak to that himself. But I just had this information in case somebody asks. Somebody tell me Mr. Cornelius is going to ask you about it. So I came and I tried to say, let me just have some information. Because this is absolute cataflam. This is an effort where you have a real issue in front of you, the issue of this prison, and you're trying to divert attention. So you start to call Spencer Brand name and say Spencer Brand is a member of Mark Brantley cabinet. But the dates are there and the letters are there. And there is no prohibition in the law, in our canon of ethics, or in anything else that prevents a private citizen from buying land, which he did in 2008, from seeking to develop his land, get permission in 2014, and then later federal permission in 2015 November. So that is as far as I know in relation to that, but as I said, Mr. Brand will speak, and I think you must ask, well, how come for a hotel development, 70 rooms, you only get 220 shares? But to host 300 inmates in a prison, you get 5,500 shares. Math's too hard, Mr. Cornelius, that math's too hard. And we must ask the question about this mathematics. I know I'm not an accountant like Timothy Harris, but the maths is too hard, it's not working out. 220 shares for a 70-room hotel, and to host 300 inmates, 5,500 shares, something is wrong. Something is wrong. So I want to make that clear. The question you said was from Mr. Huey. Yes. Mr. Huey says, why are we talking about this now? I don't believe there's ever a wrong time to talk about what is happening in the country. I don't believe that we are precluded from pointing out problems and difficulties and for asking that we change course. We have said that this prison project should stop until it can be properly evaluated, and we maintain that position. We know how Dr. Harris operates. Members of the press, you all have seen him. If Dr. Harris is going to lay this tile on this floor, he will have an opening ceremony with food. He will have a closing ceremony with food. And if you're not careful, he will have a ribbon cutting to say if the thing is there, and more food again. That is how he operates. So ask yourself, why it is this jail start? And nobody knows. Nobody knows. There has not been one public statement that this prison start. We only found out about it because Sean Richards went up there with an iPhone and did a live. I'm sure members of the press didn't even know. Why? That is out of character. No food, no ribbon cutting, no groundbreaking. Because he knows the prison is not about bringing us into international standards and ensuring that we are treating people humanely. The prison is to make some money for whoever is going to make that money. And I assure you, Mr. Cornelius, it is not you. It is not the people of this country. You realize for a prison that is estimated to cost $88 million, if you give 5,500 shares, which work out at 962 million US or 2.5 billion, you realize how much money there is to go around? When you all hear how much money given away you think is during this election, perhaps now you start to understand why the prison starts in the dead of night. These are the things that we must look at because they're staring us right in the face. So, are people paying attention? It will be up to the people. Will they say the messengers are the wrong messengers, so we're going to ignore the message? Because the message is compelling. The message is obvious. And I believe that right-thinking members of our society are looking on and are saying, what could we have done with $2.5 billion? Mr. Cornelius, if I ask you that question, I'm sure you could rattle off 10, 15 projects. I'm sure you could use a full scholarship to go to university, Mr. Cornelius. I had one, and I know it is useful and beneficial. PS, you had one? PS had to pay. But I'm sure Mr. Hanley is here every week. He comes and he asks me, what are you doing for small businesses? Could you imagine the stimulus we could give to small businesses with $2.5 billion? The roads that we could build, the facilities, the bridge to St. Kitts, and still put money aside for a rainy day. But all of that is going into a jail. A jail, that is our priority. So if people don't want to listen to that message because they say Mark Brantley is the wrong messenger, then that is a matter for our people. But I am hoping that the message is resonating. And the fact that there was a full press conference yesterday to talk about the jail tells me that the message is resonating, because we cannot defend the indefensible. And it is as simple as that. Any other questions for me?
Good morning. Today I'm here representing BHC Media, and you can follow us on Facebook. Question number one, Mr. Brantley,
Yes.
you are the minister responsible for NEVLEC. So can you let us know the formula used to calculate the fuel surcharge on NEVLEC bills? Question number two, what measures are you putting in place to reduce the growing cost of living in Nevis? Question number three, to follow up with my colleague Devon Cornelius' question about the Minister Brand's $44 million US project. My question is, why was this project a secret until it was revealed yesterday at the Prime Minister's press conference? And can you let us know if this project has started already, and where exactly is Mr. Brand's US $44 million private project located? Question number four. Minister Brantley, I have been here for several years asking questions. However, I have never seen a minister other than yourself answer any questions. I took note that there are no members of your cabinet here today. So my question to you is, don't you trust your cabinet colleagues to answer any questions from members of the media? And is the CCM government a one-man government? Question number, the last question. You said in 2020, after the federal elections, the CCM did not support Timothy Harris to be the next Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. My question to you is, don't you think by not supporting Timothy Harris to be the next Prime Minister again in 2020, you and the CCM breached the Charlestown Accord, which said that Timothy Harris would serve 2 terms as Prime Minister? Thank you.
Okay, first of all, Mr. Hanley, the Charleston Accord said no such thing. I can send you a copy if you don't have it. It's been widely in the public domain. It doesn't speak to about Timothy Harris serving 2 terms. The agreement was that no one individual would serve more than 2 terms. That is fundamentally different to saying that Timothy Harris will serve 2 terms. I think he might have had an expectation, not only to serve 2, but as it had turned out, to serve 3, 4, and 5, because that ultimately was his goal. And I saw that. I saw what was happening. I made my own assessment, and my team made their own assessment, and we did not think that he was the individual that was fit to take us forward. You talk about the Charleston Accord, but bear in mind that we had been agitating. I became Premier in 2017, and I started my letter writing campaign in April, I think it was, of 2018, about Nevis's fair share of the citizenship by investment. And clearly on that, he was not making any progress either. We felt we needed somebody different, somebody who was prepared to act as Prime Minister for the entire country. So there was no breach of any Charleston Accord in relation to him, whether he stayed on or not as Prime Minister. As it turned out, as I said, our view was not the prevailing view, and he was sworn in again as Prime Minister. History will judge whether or not that was the correct decision. You say that there are no other members of cabinet here. The truth is that when we started this press conference, other members of cabinet, and including prominent secretaries, used to be here. After COVID intervened, we took the decision that it did not make sense, because we had the difficulties of COVID for all these people to be here. And we have not asked them to come back since, because we figured this is an engagement with the Premier of Nevis. This is billed as a Premier's press conference. And that is why I come and I report on various ministries, because the information is sent to me by the various ministries for purposes of this once-a-month press conference. It has nothing to do with whether ministers can't respond. I think every single one of my ministers is competent and capable. But this is the Premier's press conference. You have come to the Premier's press conference to ask the Premier questions. And that is what it's about. And I am not one who is going to duck and shirk, and when a difficult question comes, I say, let somebody else from the audience come up and answer. That's not what you came here for. I know in other press conferences you see people calling and, you know, whoever is in the audience, especially when they have difficulty. You know, oh, Mr. Brandy, you come. Oh, Thompson, you come. That is not why I'm here. I'm here to be accountable and open as the head of government. And I am representing to the public, through the press, what the issues are, and speaking on behalf of the various ministries as the head of government. And so there's no effort to do anything but that. And clearly, my team has sufficient confidence in me to represent the government as the head of government at a press conference that I've been doing since I got into government in December of 2017. I think the first one would have been in 2018, but we've been trying to do it every month since then. NEVLEC and the formula, what I can tell you is that it's quite a complicated mathematical formula that they use. I can't begin to explain it to you, but NEVLEC will have a press conference, and the hope would be that you could go and they will explain it to you, the technical team. I expect that they will be doing that shortly. They did contact me last night about being on the radio, but they could not be accommodated, so they will do something directly. And so that will be explained to you, Mr. Hanley, and when it is, I hope that you will understand it. I certainly can't say that I understand all the details, because it factors in things like the price of fuel, the escalating price of fuel, or de-escalating price of fuel, as the case may be, because, you know, it is intended to go up and down. It's an accordion effect. Cost of living. Well, let me, before I move on from the NEVLEC issue, NEVLEC, I'm told, is supposed to be having a press conference where they will deal with some of these issues, because people have been naturally crying out that the fuel surcharge in some months is higher than their consumption, and people understandably want to know why. They will seek to explain that and explain the formula, as you say. What I will say to our people, however, is that we all live in this world, and we understand that we have increasing oil prices globally. The invasion of Ukraine has exacerbated that difficulty. And so we expect that these unstable prices might exist for some time. Our people now need to start to respond. And one of the ways you respond is to change behavior. I know it's hard, but if you're accustomed to run your AC all day, all night, if you're accustomed to drive around the island on a Sunday just because you feel like taking a drive, maybe you want to cut back on some of those. Just like when we have water shortage, we ask people to cut back on watering their lawn, cut back on this. It is not good for me to stand here and tell people that, but I think sometimes we need to adjust and adjust certain things. If, for example, you have a loss of a job, or you have a reduced income for some reason, maybe you decide, well, okay, I'm going to party less, I'm going to drink less, I'm going to cut back in some areas. And I think that our people need to look at our own behavior and see where we might be able to conserve. Sometimes, for example, you have 3 people living in a household now in Nevis, and all 3 have cars. It could be that if you're going to work and you and your wife work in town, that you drive together instead of driving separately. If your daughter is going to work in town as well, that you drive, the 3 of you drive together instead of driving separately. I am just saying that there are things that we can do, because this is beyond the capacity of any government in the region. Even the government of Trinidad and Tobago, which has oil, I don't think can control the cost of living that we're experiencing now. You ask what are we doing about the cost of living? I made an address the other day when I said that we would be removing all the import charges, etc., on food and food items. That had come from the technocrats at the Ministry of Finance. We then had a meeting, Mr. Hanley, with the main supermarket operators in Nevis, Best Buy, Value Mart, and Rams. And I was troubled by what they told me, because they basically said to me, thank you for what you're trying to do, but it's not going to make a difference. Because they're telling me that every week that they order, the prices from their suppliers are going up. There are serious shortages, serious manufacturing, production issues that is leading to escalating prices around the world. And because of that difficulty, Mr. Handy, we are caught in the balance. Again, I'm asking our people to change behavior. We have, since COVID, been advocating more agriculture on the island, to plant something in your backyard. And our farmers, we're encouraging them to produce more using technology, including shade house technology. But more than that, I'm encouraging our people to buy local. Because by buying local, we can insulate ourselves somewhat from those exogenous shocks. So instead of buying sweet peppers in the supermarket that come in here from Miami, we don't even know what quality they are. We don't know how long they were picked, what they might have been sprayed on them to keep them looking fresh. We have no idea. And instead of doing that and buying that, and you're buying at $3 this week and $5 next week and $10 the week after, why not buy local? When you buy local, we know exactly where it comes from. And we know that we're supporting the local economy. So it's one of the areas that I'm encouraging our people, meat as the abattoir, local vegetables. I understand we can't buy everything local, because if you like your grapes and you like your apples and that kind of thing, then I appreciate that. But I'm saying that where you can substitute local produce for the imported produce, then I'm encouraging people to do that. The truth is, Mr. Hanley, and I always try to be direct and forthright, we are caught in a situation which is outside the control of a small government like ours and outside the control of most governments in the region. When I hear President Biden, the president of the most powerful and richest nation in the world, giving a speech about cost of living in America, inflation in America, and if they can't bring it under control with their might and their production capacity, then I just use that as an example to set out how difficult it is to do for a small island like ours, which is an open economy and where we import most of what we use. And it's not only food, you know, Mr. Handy. Building materials, shipping. Shipping, I will tell you, we just bought some equipment for solid waste. We bought some new trucks, we bought some heavy equipment for solid waste. Very significant investment. And to ship those equipment, we were told initially it was in the region of 28,000 US dollars. That is what we signed on to. By the time the equipment was ready for shipping, they sent us and said to us that the amount had increased to nearly 70,000 US dollars to ship them. More than double the cost. And so we had to grapple. Do we tell them to hold them and hope that the price goes down? Or do we tell them, go ahead and ship them, and we try and find the extra money to pay? And we decided, go ahead and ship, because we did not know if we hold, if the price would keep going up. But that is the situation. Ukraine, as you know, was very important to shipping. Russia was very important to shipping. The shipping lanes and the containers and the freighters, whatever they call them, that do the shipping around the world. And so that difficulty has exacerbated that problem as well. So in every aspect, fuel prices are going up, shipping costs are going up, food production is scarce, and therefore food prices are going up. So you have a perfect storm in relation to cost of living. And again, in my view, we will need to adjust, do the best we can at the individual and household level to see how we can control what we spend and what we do. Mr. Brand, you say that the project was a secret. I don't know that the project was a secret. The project has not yet started. And normally, as we know, you would have the groundbreaking and all that when the project starts. So I don't know if he had to go out and advertise the fact that he intends to do a project. His project has not yet started. His project, as I understand it, is somewhere towards the south of the island, Cox Heath area. I don't know if you know where that area is, Mr. Hanley, but that is where I'm told that the project is. So I don't know that the project was a secret, as I say. I just think that the project having not started, there was nothing to report on it. I would have loved to have come and tell you that a hotel project has started in the Coxeat area. But what we had was merely the approvals for the project. I think, as I said, Mr. Brand will speak, and when he does, a lot of other things will become clear as to why his project has not yet started. But I just wanted to clarify that Mr. Brand did not get any approval for his project whilst he was a minister in my cabinet. Mr. Brand did his project as a private citizen, and his project has not yet commenced. I think that you asked me, oh, I dealt with that, the last question first, so I answered that, the question about the Charleston Accord. Are there any other questions for me?
Yes, one last question from Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. He wants to know about the water supply here in Nevis. Are there issues with the consistent water supply due to the low rainfall, as is the case on St. Kitts?
I dealt with that earlier when I made my original statement. Please forgive me, I am pulling it up now. This was a report that we got from water, the water department. So we initiated a water management system, a water management program, I'm sorry, on May 21st. And that had affected the areas from Maddens to Jessup in the northern section of the island. But we then started to even it out. So we extended the water rationing to the southern side of the island, Zion to Cherry Gardens via Beach Road. But we relaxed it, Mr. Cornelius, on June 20th on account of the rainfall that we had received. So the short answer is yes, we were having some difficulties based on the low rainfall and the severe drought that we have been experiencing, but we are very flexible. So the minute we get rains and the system is reinforced, if you will, we tend to relax the water restrictions while encouraging our people still to be practical. So no watering of the lawns and washing of the cars, and try to avoid that. Just as I'm asking people to conserve electricity, I'm asking them to conserve water as well. So the short answer is yes, we've had some difficulties, but we are managing those difficulties. Are there any other questions for me? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Mr. Hanlon, Mr. Cornelius, and Ms. Budgeon, thank you. The members of the press who are here, those who sent in their questions, and those who listened. I certainly look forward to this engagement each month, and I thank each and every one of you for being a part of this monthly press conference. Thank you, and have a nice day. And please remember the Mango Festival this weekend. I hope you go out and enjoy the festivities. And again, I invite all of our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts to come over and be a part of our Mango Festival this weekend. Thank you.